Struggling to find the fastest and shortest route to your destination? Well, you might want to check out this web application called Sakay.PH, which aims to ease the burden of commuting in the metro. And to tell us more about how this commuting app works, we have in the studio Philip Cheang, one of the designers of Sakay.PH. Good morning, Philip.
Good morning. Thank you for having me over.
No, thank you for waking up early to be with us on daybreak. Now, I am very curious about this. This is my first time to hear about Sakay.PH. How does this work?
All right. Well, it actually works like a lot of the mapping apps that you might have used, like Google Maps, like Waze, what have you. But the difference is that instead of giving you walking directions, well, we do give walking directions, but instead of giving you driving directions, we give you directions on how to commute. So we have data on all of the bus routes, the Jeep routes, the MRT routes, and you combine all of that to try to give you the best route from your destination to your
From your location
to your destination.
Yep, now, how does that work? Do I just type in a general area, or do I have to type in the exact address of where I'm going?
Right. So what we try to do is we actually have an autocomplete built into the site. So if you type in something like, Ateneo or La Salle, it will actually suggest
You had to choose the two rival schools, right?
Yeah, well, sure, why not?
Are you from Ateneo? Just kidding. So, for example, you type Ateneo, and then...
Yeah, because you can have the one in Katipunan, you can have the one near Rockwell. So it'll actually it'll actually show you which one do you mean. Same goes for La Salle. Do you mean the one in Taft? Do you mean the one in Green Hills? You can actually choose the right one.
Right. So you have a list of results. Okay, and because we know that the city, Metro Manila, is sort of notorious for changing road names.
Oh, yeah.
And, rules. Like, for example, some buses, they do not stop at bus stops, or some jeepneys do not stop where they should be. Are those updated on your app? Would people be, in the know about stuff like that?
Right. So the data that we have actually comes from the DOTC. They actually had a project where they collected data about all of these different routes. And as you can imagine, it's not very... how should you say? It's not very structured. So what they did was they had
Metro Manila in its entirety.
Oh, yeah. But what they had was they had students go around with volunteer, and they had a smartphone device that was actually just tracking their location, and they did that for most of the routes in like Metro Manila. So our data is actually based off that. They did that last year. As far as updates are concerned, we don't have that right yet, but we might be building features into the site in the future where people can sort of say, hey, this isn't where it ought to be, or hey, this is actually moving.
Always tweaking it. Now, for example, you do identify where the bus routes are or the jeepney routes. For a foreigner or a backpacker, we have a lot of those over here who have trouble getting around the metro without having to take extortionate taxi rides, right? Would they have information from the app on which bus to take? Because I've made the mistake of getting on a bus that brought me nowhere close to where I needed to go because that's what I thought it said in the front. Would there be advice and tips on that?
All right. So in that regard, we don't have anything specifically like that. We do say what the name of the bus is and where it ought to be going. So at the very least, I think you can say, hey, is this the bus going to, this area? But insofar as showing you a picture of what the exact bus should look like, not yet, but that might be something we could build in the future.
Okay. Let's talk about fares, transportation fare. Now, do you have tips on that in the app? Like, for example, if you take a bus, it'll cost about this much. The jeepney would cost about this much, just to give people more sort of information that is handy while they commute? Oh,
yeah. We actually do have fare information for jeepneys and for trains, and I think maybe some for buses as well. We don't, since a lot of these change a lot over time as well, sometimes it's not quite exact, but we do give you a general idea, hey, it might cost this much. And we actually, whenever you do a search, it actually gives you several options. Like one option, you just need to take this Jeep and then transfer to another Jeep. For another one, it will cost about this much in total, Another one is maybe you just have to take the train and then transfer to a bus, then it would cost this much.
If the train doesn't break down.
Yeah, so at least you have the option of...
So trying to make the mood lighter.
Oh, yeah. So there's actually an option. For example, you want to avoid the train because you're like, no, not with all
Yeah,
the stuff
I'm not
going
riding
on.
in an open door train.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Risk my life.
So you can actually say, I can avoid the train and just say, I want the one with just
Yeah.
jeeps or the one with just buses, and it would cost this much.
This is really clever because I know they have something like this in Singapore. A friend of mine downloaded the app, and she's French, so I said, wow, how do you get around so well? And she's like, oh, I have this app. And I think that is something that is absolutely handy and necessary when you live in a place like Metro Manila. Now, for people who want to have, a guide while traveling, how do they get directions? Let's say they can't quite understand, for example, the map or the route that was given to them. Is there a way that the app could send them a more like an essay or paragraph, not essay, a paragraph type of direction for their
Right.
specific destination?
That's a paragraph type. We don't have anything exactly like that. But one of the nicer things we have is you can actually print your directions. So you're not limited. Yeah.
Okay,
So you're not
awesome.
limited to just
if
looking
your
at the
phone
map and then
dies.
remembering what it might be.
Yeah, that's clever.
You can actually print it per step, and we have a map per step. So like for this step, you have to walk from here. From this step, the jeep should go from here to here. And hopefully, if you're like out and about, you can point to someone. What does this mean, right?
Yeah.
I think
good.
anyone here should be able to actually understand what it says
That's
on the,
pretty
ma-
clever.
on the directions.
What made you guys think of coming up with something like this? Did you get frustrated at the commute situation?
Yeah, a lot of my friends are actually pretty frustrated. Thomas included, who was the co-developer of the app with me. And the problem is actually really multifaceted. I mean, it's part infrastructure, it's part culture, it's part politics, it's part information,
yeah.
all sorts of different things.
It's an amalgamation of all those factors. Yeah.
But I think the one thing we thought where we could actually improve on was on the information, because I think a lot of people are aware that all this traffic is bad. I should commute.
Oh yeah.
But how do I commute?
Where does one begin?
Exactly. And in fact, you mentioned, that there are similar stuff abroad. That was
Yeah.
part of our inspiration. So why couldn't we provide the same kind of service or the same kind of app that these other countries have? Something where I can search online or on my phone or even get printed directions.
That is such an amazing breakthrough. Now, my next question is this just for the city itself? Is it just for Metro Manila? Or would you later be developing for other major cities like Cebu City, Davao City?
Right. So right now we're limited to Metro Manila because
Okay.
that's the data that is available from the government. If they choose to make data for other cities available,
You're
then
more than welcome.
Of course.
Okay.
And if they don't do that, or if because it's actually quite a difficult task, we might be actually able to build features where people can submit their own routes, and if that works well, we have to see.
You'd have to investigate if it's
if it's actually
accurate.
feasible, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
verify that. I hear you guys were part of a Philippine Transit app challenge. Tell me about that.
Right. So that's actually sort of where the project began, because we had all of these frustrations, and we had the idea. Oh yeah, sure, we could make an app, but
do
where are we going to
something
get the
about
data?
it,
Yeah. So to the government's credit, they've been making a lot of big strides in terms of like open data and making a lot of this information public.
Yeah.
But of course, making the information public is one step. What you actually do with that information.
Right.
So what we chose to do was to build an app where you could get directions based on the route data that was provided. And there were a lot of different apps or competitors in that
Sure,
challenge,
yeah.
and some of them took different steps or took different approaches. One of them did something where you could report jeepneys which were not driving properly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is so stressful just thinking about.
Oh yeah. One of them did something similar to ours, but it was just limited to trains, for example.
Okay.
So, but the bonus was that they actually had landmarks, I think, next to the trains, sort of like that. So and then another one tried to do like a lot of things. They took a sort of kitchen sink approach. So what we did was we said, what's the most important thing people need? And that's knowing how to get from point A to point B.
Right.
And what do we need to provide them to actually accomplish that goal, which is just directions. And we have to make sure we have comprehensive directions. It should know about the buses, the jeeps, the trains, and it should be able to combine them as well as with walking.
This may sound like a silly question, but what about tricycles? Because tricycles, they're like the middle ground between, it's like a ridiculous form of transportation, but definitely a necessity for smaller villages and subdivisions.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys include that in the app, or are you thinking of maybe throwing that in later on?
Right now, we don't have that in, but we could if, again, same thing, if the data's
It's kind
there.
of silly, right? But
Yeah.
like you do need a tricycle.
Oh, yeah, totally.
There's such an inconvenience sometimes, but then you're like, oh, well, the only way to get there is through a tricycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long has the app been running for, or live?
Right. So we did this for that competition, and that competition was late last year. I think we've not yet a year, but almost. I
Yeah.
think we're around 10, 11 months at this point.
Awesome.
So pretty good.
And how has the response? I haven't heard of it, but apparently, if you guys have been running, this is a well-kept secret. I think people are trying to sort of hog this kind of convenience in their lives just for themselves. But how has the response been since you guys went live?
Right. So I don't think it's quite well known because we haven't been even doing any sort of marketing or any sort of push. So far, I think the people that have found it have, it's just been like word of mouth.
Yeah.
But so far, a lot of people have used it. I think to date, we've done about 300 or 400,000 searches or requests on our site.
Wow, that is a lot. Expect more after this feature.
Oh yeah, hopefully.
I'll be blasting this on all my social media platforms.
Yeah, and besides, just those raw numbers, a lot of people, if you look on Twitter, for example, if you do a search for what people have been saying, we've got a lot of really good feedback. Like some people have said that, some people said, they feel validated because the route we give them is the same route that they actually take.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. But one of the nicer pieces of feedback I've seen was that, hey, this actually gave me a route I didn't know, and I actually saved money and time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. You're helping out.
Yeah, so that's sort of the reason that we actually want to do this stuff, to actually make, oh wow, this actually great, and it brightens someone's day.
Yeah.
And maybe not just a day, but days to come.
Yeah, and at the risk of hyperbole, I would say, what you guys are doing is modern day heroic. Because, just getting to work and to school and getting back home is sort of a battle that we all face every day. And with apps like yours, it really sort of helps us. You're like halfway there. It's winning half the battle. Now, this app for now is free. They can just download this, right? Is it for Apple and Android users?
Right. So the way this works is we're actually a web app.
Okay.
What that means is it's something that runs in your browser.
All
so you
right.
go to Sakay.PH on your laptop or desktop, you get directions.
Okay.
This site will actually also work on your Android or your iPhone. So if
You have to open a browser.
Yes.
Okay.
So right now it's browser based, but it'll still work on your phone. And if you don't have a smartphone, like if you have like a normal like a Nokia, or if you don't have mobile data in your smartphone, you can actually text. So they're actually directions.
Yeah. Oh, how does that work? So what do they text and what number do they send it to?
Right. Now, the number is actually on the website. I would say it now, but I'm not confident I'll say the right number. But if you go to...
Do we have that information? Can you flash that on the screen? I'm not sure if we have that one. But they can go to this website, right? Sakay.ph.
Yes, they can go to Sakay.ph. It's down there at the bottom. Yeah. And you just text route and then the origin to your destination. So yeah, there, right. That's that.
Okay, so you guys should take a screenshot of that or write that down somewhere you won't forget or lose, because this is so handy. I'm actually gonna test this out one of these days, and I'm feeling much more bold and brazen.
Right.
This is fantastic. And if people want to get in touch, they can follow you guys on Twitter?
Yeah, so
Facebook?
they can you can go to Sakay.PH on Twitter, or by implication or Twitter. That's actually our company's what's this handle.
Great. And then if they want to send you emails for any suggestions or requests, how do they reach you guys?
All right, so you can actually contact us at contact@byimplication.com.
Awesome. This has been very interesting, and congratulations, kudos to something that is revolutionary and is going to help make people's commute lives better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me over.
It's been such a pleasure. There you have it. That was Philip Cheang, one of the designers of Sakay.PH. News from around the world are coming up next. Daybreak will be back after these messages. Stay with us.